The only thing you can't do remote in a dental office today, whether that's a GP, ortho, OMS, whatever it is the clinical side. You may not be able to do the sterilization remotely. You can't do the hygiene remotely. So there's things that you can't do remotely, but everything else, from treatment coordinator to director of first impressions to insurance help, billing, AP, calling back patients who need to come in, all of that can be done remotely. And honestly, Glenn, it can be done better remotely than you can in your office because they usually have the time and are set up for success.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of your Orthopreneurs podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Glenn Krieger, and today we're going to talk about assistants, not dental assistants, not ortho assistants, not the kind of assistants you're thinking about. I'm going to promote for you or to show you another way to work with virtual assistants. You've had podcasts about it in the past, but I really want you to understand ways that you can be more productive and save money and even get better help by outsourcing. And you guys all know I'm a huge fan of outsourcing. So let's welcome J.W. Oliver. He is the founder, co-founder, managing partner, dishwasher at Support DDS and ZimWorks. Welcome, J.W.
Hey, thanks, Glenn. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you allowing me to be here.
You know, he's a Texan. And I like to refer to myself as a Texan now, and you can hear the similarity in our two accents.
Well, I'll slow down for those who need to understand Texan a little better, right?
Yeah, and the best part is, most of the time, if you were anybody else, I'd be calling you JW. But the nice thing is here in Texas, you're JW.
That's right.
It works out well. And so,
yeah, it's either J-Dub or JW. It's shortened for sure.
Let's start here because your story is an amazing story, and you're one of these true international guys, right? I mean, you're in Texas today, but next week you'll be in Costa Rica or Zimbabwe or any number of places because of how your company functions. And it's really an intriguing story that I think people will get a lot of fun out of. So let's start with just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, who you are, what your company does, and how you ended up where you are now.
Yeah, so interesting story, Glenn. I've been in the dental business, primarily the dental equipment imaging business, since all the way back to 1986, right out of college. And I kind of fell into that business as well. I wasn't looking for a job in the dental business, but I fell into it. And fast forward all the way to 2015, my wife and I actually were on a marriage retreat, and I meet a guy from Zimbabwe, of all places. I'm like, okay, well, first of all, where is Zimbabwe? Put that on the map. So he showed me it was in Southern Africa, and his wife and himself and my wife and me, we went to dinner that night, hit it off. He said, hey, we should figure out how to employ people in my country. They're amazing. They're educated. They speak the Queen's English. And I said, you're in the commercial real estate, food business. What in the world can we do together? He said, hey, you think you could use some just working in your company? So I tried a few in our dental company. We still have about 10 working in that company as well. And I called him back saying, man, this really works. They're smart. They show up for work every day. They are educated. They catch on quickly. And so I said, hey, we should give this a shot. It took a while. We started really 2017 was our first hire. And I remember, Glenn, in 2018, we had 8 people working for us in February of 2018. And I thought, man, where's this going to go? And then finally, a friend of mine, matter of fact, she's here in Fort Worth, Dr. Nikki Green, came and said, do you think they could do insurance verification? I said, don't know what that is, but maybe. And so she tried it, said, hey, this is a home run. So fast forward, we launched out of our ZimWorks company. We launched Support DDS, which is our biggest piece of it now, of the organization. We now almost have 1,100 people. That's 1,100 people working. We've got our primary center in Zimbabwe. We just opened last month in Zambia, which is adjacent to Zimbabwe. And then we have a Spanish-speaking call center in Costa Rica that we launched in early 2023. So here I am today, not using my criminal justice degree, which I love that. Always thought that was fun. Not still in the equipment business, but still in the dental industry, which I love. And now I've got a real passion for what we do.
Beautiful. What you're doing couldn't have been done 15 years ago, 10 years ago with the advent of high-speed broadband, right? Global Crossing was the name of the company back in the around 2000-ish, who ended up going belly up, I think, but they laid so much cable underneath the ocean, fiber optics, to make, but for them, I don't know if what we're doing here would actually be happening. And I'm a huge fan of outsourcing. people who listen regularly know that my company, Remote Response, which is just basically dashboard monitoring for dental monitoring customers. And would you say that when people hear outsourced labor, they hear about Zimbabwe, they hear about the Philippines, they hear about Costa Rica, they hear about India, right? That their first impression is, we're going to get really bad quality, right? Do you encounter that a lot where people don't seem to really understand the quality of people that you get around the world? Because intelligence, I hate to break the news to you folks, having watched the debates for the presidential election, I think it's fair to say that we can all agree that intelligence is not just an American thing, okay? There's a lot of intelligence, even greater than what we've got in other countries as well. And these people want to work, and the jobs that we're willing to offer them are sometimes the best jobs that anybody in their family has ever had. And they are smart, they are responsible, they are there to help, and they can learn your culture and do exactly what you need. But do you find that prejudice that people have against it at first gloss?
Yeah, there's definitely that negative connotation, and we've all done it, right? We've called our bank, we've called a travel agency, we've called our credit card, whatever, and we've had difficulty understanding maybe that person on the other end of the line. But that's
Right.
changing. There's a lot of cultures that are increasing their English comprehension to make it more westernized. And of course, there's places like Africa open up, which is primarily where we're at, because they do have the Queen's English speaking, and they sound like they're from London. So it's really bridged that gap. We actually use the term insourcing now. A friend of mine, matter of fact, it was Dr. Bruce Baird. He was in Africa with us, and he said, "Well, it's not really outsourcing; it's more like insourcing," and that's stuck. That was almost pre-COVID, so it was not 2019. And so we begin to coin that phrase to understand that we work in your office, a part of your team, integrated as really an extension of your workforce. So, Glenn, what's different about us is we don't offer just call handling services where we're charging per minute, per call, per production, et cetera. We're actually giving the dentist or the dental group a full-time team member who works for them. They can even go through the interview process and select who they want. And then if Natasha's working for you, she's always working for you. So you're not dealing with somebody different every day. So
Yeah.
that's helped get over that stigma. But you're right, outsourcing, offshoring has always had a little bit of a negative connotation, but it is changing.
Yeah, understandably. You said it best. When I call one particular credit card that I have, that I get these fraud alerts, and I call them, they say, please call us. The moment I see the please call us, I know I better bring my lunch, because it's going to be the worst half hour of my life with someone who I can barely understand, who is just following a script and cannot think for themselves, and it becomes nightmarish. How can I convince? I guess I don't want to convince anybody. I just want to educate. How do I educate the people listening right now that when I bring somebody in that I work with you, for instance, right, at Support DDS, how do I know that somebody who I'm bringing in is not going to be on the phone creating that exact same scenario with somebody from, insert name of credit card here?
Yeah, that's funny. I literally happened to me 2 days ago, and
Oh,
it was frustrating. And I finally said, "Could I please transfer me to a manager in the USA?" And they do. They typically
right.
will if you get
That's exactly
keep
what I
pushing.
say.
It's just hard. Right? It's painful, right? You don't even want to make that phone call. So I think there's two ways I would suggest. Number one, I, unfortunately, here in the U.S., we are a little bit conceited on thinking we're the only people that exist in the world that, as you mentioned, are smart, educated, talented, can think outside the box. You find that there are places, Zimbabwe is a perfect example, where 96% of our team members have a 4-year college education. So they're very talented, can think, and they can do accounting and various pieces, but really get on the phone. You can go to supportdds.com, schedule a discovery call. It takes about 20, 30 minutes. There'll be a person on that call who is from either our Zimbabwe or Zambia, or if needed, Costa Rica office. And you'll be able to get a firsthand experience of what that sounds like. So expand the mind, expand the thoughts, and really think about what you can do. The only thing they can't do in an office, the only thing you can't do remote in a dental office today, whether that's a GP, ortho, OMS, whatever it is the clinical side, or you may not be able to do the sterilization remotely. You can't do the hygiene remotely. So there's things that you can't do remotely, but everything else, from treatment coordinator to director of first impressions to insurance help, billing, AP, calling back patients who need to come in, all of that can be done remotely. And honestly, Glenn, it can be done better remotely than you can in your office because they usually have the time and are set up for success. We have a dental training program that's about a week long where they get certification, what we call dental coordinator, where they learn about customer service skills and understand. So we bring to them a trained person. And now we've been in business long enough that we can have somebody who's already has a year or maybe even 2 years working in a dental office, and they can get some experienced people as well.
It's beautiful. And one of the things I keep telling, you and I are in the same boat. Even though we do different things, I'm constantly telling orthodontists about why what you refer to as insourcing is the right way to go, particularly with things like what I'm promoting with remote response, where, at first I tried to explain to doctors that we can do it less expensively, but they don't want to hear that, right? Making more money for many, I don't know why, but they'll make the argument, well, what am I supposed to do with my assistant that I already have, right? With the person already doing the job. Well, first of all, they're all complaining how short-staffed they are. Everybody's short-staffed. So if you're working with too many team members right now, God bless you, because that's almost unheard of right now. And I pivoted the message away from what you just said. I used to say, we'll save you money. Nobody wants to hear it. I used to say, we're going to do it better than you can because you're hiring a dental assistant or somebody you're hiring for, let's be honest, most of the people we're hiring for dental offices are not at the higher end of the pay scales of the jobs available in the United States right now. So they're not necessarily educated. They're not necessarily great communicators. They're not necessarily great organizers. They're not necessarily great leaders. And so we're hiring these people, paying them a ton of money for mediocre outcomes in many cases. And we can do it better because the people you're getting from Zimbabwe or Costa Rica or Philippines or what have you, since they're vetted, are going to do a far, far, far better job. But believe it or not, JW, you know this, they don't want to hear that either, right? There's always an answer. There's always an excuse. But the one thing they can't get away from, the one thing that you want to bury your head in the sand and ignore this message, it's at their own peril. And I'd love your feedback on it. It is when you're doing things that could be insourced, outsourced, however you want to refer to it, to somebody else for less money who's going to do it better, and you want to ignore all that, the part you can't ignore is that you are now freeing up one of your team members who's probably one of your better team members to go do the stuff that's actually going to make you more money. Because if you've got somebody doing financial calls, they better be a decent communicator, they better be relatively smart, and I'm willing to wager they're one of your better team members. And if you can outsource that for half the price or a third of the price or whatever it ends up being, and you can put that person on marketing, on managing, on leadership, on training, on growing your practice, on visiting other offices, on doing a million things they could be doing to put more money in your pocket and lower your stress, then you're a fool if you don't do it. I have no problem being polarizing, and I'll say it out loud just like that.
Well, no, actually, I love it. You're passionate about it, which is great. Sometimes I can't be as passionate about it because I come across as being a little cynical, right? But you're exactly right. We say it is elevating your team members while you can grow your business, because you're right. If you have somebody who's doing some mundane things that are over and over kind of repetitive pieces, or if it's something that somebody else could be more specialized in, it just does free them up to do the higher ROI things. I actually have written a number of little editorials and pieces about dentists and practitioners and business leaders 2xing, 3xing, even 4xing your time. And it's about looking at the things that you're doing every day. And you can challenge your in-office people as well, Glenn. So I categorize it into 4 things. There are things you can eliminate. There's just things that nobody should be doing. Why am I even working on this? There's things you can automate. And then there's things you can delegate. And you may have an office manager or an office staff who would be better off delegating those things. And then my last one is concentrate. So I think when you eliminate, automate, delegate, and then they can concentrate on those areas that are the highest return, it just free themselves up. And that's whether you're the dentist or whether you're the practitioner or the business owner or the office manager, the CEO, COO, whatever it is, you can free up your time. And that's what you need to do in your practice, is figure out what are those tasks that somebody actually, you're right, forget about doing it cheaper. you have available labor. The stats say that 58% of all front office staff across the U.S. are going to be looking for a different job this year. So that means, yes, you in your office, your team may be looking for a different job. As much as you think they're happy and healthy, they may be looking for a different job. So be prepared for that when it happens, because it's difficult to replace.
Yeah, and it's funny to hear that, because when you're in a position like yours or mine's a little different in that I curate a group of orthodontists, and I get lots and lots of messages. I get lots of messages, direct messages from people in the group who don't want to speak publicly, but they want to reach out to me personally. And the message, I wish I had a practice like so-and-so. They seem to be so happy. I wish I had a practice like this one. They seem to have had their team forever. And then you're talking to whatever doctor they just named, and you find out that half their team is just left, right? Like everybody seems to think their team's going to stay around forever. And we live in a time where you pay more than you ever have in the past. You have to do everything you can it reminds me of like one of those birds on one of the wildlife documentaries that's got like gorgeous colored plumage, and it's doing 10 million things to attract its mate, right? It's working so hard. And I feel like in some respect, that's what we are as business owners today, is we're doing things so radically different than they did 30 years ago when I started my career. 30 years ago, you put an ad, people showed up, you met them, you treated them nicely, you treated them with respect, you paid them on time, and they stayed in your business. And they stayed because you were treating them well, and there was an understanding that you were going to take care of them and they were going to take care of you, and the relationship mattered. Nowadays, they come in, you overpay them, you overtrain them, you kowtow to every single problem that they've got. If they show up late, you can't scream at them, you can't yell at them, you can't even talk to them because they'll quit on you right away. And if anybody out there thinks that the team they have now is the same exact team they're going to have in 12 months, let alone 24 or 36, they're out of their minds. So that leads me to the next question. I'm a doctor and I've got a practice, and it's going to be a couple of questions here, JW. So I'm short-staffed, and I really, really need somebody who can do some sort of thing for me remotely, right? And I reach out to you and say, hey, JW, I need somebody. What's the process from there? What happens next?
Yeah. First thing would be that discovery call. That typically takes 20 minutes, 30 minutes maximum. We're going to tell you about the process. We're going to find out what your needs are. So we'll define it. Let's just say you came and said, you know what, I'm missing 30% of my calls. I would just like somebody to help answer phone calls. We said, okay, we can set up a rollover, or they can be the primary person catching the calls. We would then bring you. So let's say we're doing a discovery call today. I'm saying, oh, what today is Friday, Glenn. I tell you what, on Tuesday, what time would be good for you to set up an interview for 3 candidates? And you say, 11 o'clock's good for me. We'll set it up 11 o'clock Central Time. You would actually get on a Zoom call, video call, 30 minutes. You would get to interview, meet the people, ask them questions. So let's say now we're at Tuesday. You say, you know what? Sarah did really good. I would like to hire Sarah. And by the way, we have a lot of males too, about 40% males. So you may pick a male or female, whichever one. And then you'd say, okay, you've selected Sarah. Today's Tuesday. She could start on Thursday. So we can do it we've done it in 3 business days for people who are really in a bind. Look, just lost some front office staff. Nobody answered the phone. Typically 5 to 7 business days, you can be up and running with a team member who is trained. Now, I don't want to give you the idea that they're completely trained for Glenn's office, because that may look substantially different than someone else, but they've got a good understanding of background, and we can have them onboarded in as little as 5 business days. And it's a flat monthly fee. So you're not hit with all these various charges and fees. You pay a flat monthly fee for 40 hours a week.
Okay. And are you at liberty to talk a little bit about what that fee is?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Our fee is $2,125 a month. It's a little over $12 an hour based on 168 hours in a month. So you're getting a full-time, dedicated, dental trained, university educated team member who's working for you at about $12.50 or so an hour. The other thing is we don't do any work from home. So I want to be clear about that. That'll help create any thoughts as well. Nobody's, I've gotten in trouble for this, but I think it's the truth. I'm like you a little upfront. You're not going to hear chickens in the background. You're not going to hear roosters crowing or dogs barking or babies crying. We are in a high-rise Class 8 facility where we occupy 7 different floors in our main center in Zimbabwe, where they come in and they are dedicated and work for you. We We use Black Talon Security, which handles all of our HIPAA, PHI compliance. So we're monitored with a cybersecurity company based here in the U.S. So we really go to great lengths to have somebody that's ready to go. So in terms of the dental office, the practitioner, the ortho office, you basically can get started quickly and know that all the bases are covered, because this is really what we do.
Got it. So from the day we have that initial discovery call till I have somebody working with me, how long is that roughly?
5 to 7 business days.
Okay. And what are some of the best practices of me onboarding them into my practice? Because I suspect there's a fair number of people out there who say, hey, JW, I need somebody. And 5 to 7 business days later, they've got their person. And okay, cool. This is Susie. Go work with her. See you again. Take care. And then there are people who are going to micromanage and bring this person through checklists and tons of stuff. What do you recommend when you bring somebody on board? Because I think that's just as important as the person.
Yeah, I think there's 2 things. If you've got some standard operating procedures in place, some training manuals, and we've had groups at small, even single practices who they've set up videos and they go through the training process for that position, whether it's front desk or recall or back end or collections or insurance, whatever it is. But I would say, first of all, think of them as somebody who's in your office working. If you hire somebody to start in your office Monday morning, they need to be trained by somebody. So utilize that same method and training for that person to train your remote team member. That's the most of the biggest success. The second thing is we have an extremely low attrition rate, which is unheard of in the industry. If you speak to anybody in the standard call center, BPO centers, it's about 12 to 15% on a monthly basis of rollover and attrition. Ours is less than 1%. And the reason we think we're successful with that, Glenn, is because we tell people, integrate them into your culture, your practice, on your team. So don't treat them like there's somebody in another country. Celebrate birthdays, anniversaries. We tell people, have a virtual cup of coffee with them once a month and just get to know them, find out a little bit about them, just as you would a team member in your office if you took them to lunch or, sat in the break room and talked to them. That is the key to success and the key to training them up.
It's key to success in all business relationships right there.
That's right. Relationships.
Like how often do you have somebody from your company who says, you know what, I can't work with this company anymore. They're rude, or they're so all over the place. I can't even follow. They're asking me to do things, but they're not giving me training. Does that ever happen?
Yeah. And it is a real problem. We try to set that expectation up, but I'm sitting here talking to Glenn and I go by and say, hey, man, Glenn's a nice guy. And, he's just wonderful. And then next thing you know, the team members going to their manager, which we call a client success partner. And they're saying, wow, they're so rude. They screamed at me today and told me I needed to do this, and this, but I don't know what they want me to do. They're telling me I'm not. So yes, you're 100% right. But they're probably having the same problem in their office as they are external to their office. So it probably hasn't changed, right? They're just doing it in a different place. But absolutely, I'm not saying a lot. But something like that pops up once a month where they're asking them to do, they're asking to do accounting functions and they didn't hire somebody for accounting functions. And so we don't have any unicorns. I always tell people the person you hire to answer your phone can't build your website, balance your checkbooks, and, do your collection. So, hire for the role as well.
But you can hire somebody to balance your checkbook, and you can find somebody to do your IT, right?
Yeah. We've got controllers working for groups who says, well, you know what, I need a controller. One here in the U.S. going to cost me $175,000, and we do it for $50,000. So yes, we've got high level roles where they are chartered accountants on that side, similar to a CPA, and they're able to help them with their accounting, all the way just down to somebody to help bookkeeping, balance the accounts, if you will, whatever they're using. All the way to helping with insurance claims and submittals as well.
There was a period of time where I had somebody from another country who was helping do my bookkeeping. He was doing great work, a really sweet, really nice person. And he was an accountant, right? He was an accountant from the Philippines. He had more knowledge than almost any bookkeeper I'd ever met in my life. And he was so hungry for the work that he was doing things for my QuickBooks that I didn't even know existed. It was remarkable what he was doing. And again, you've got yourself an accountant from another country working for you for like $12 an hour, right? It's
That's
like
correct.
it's absolutely ridiculous the quality of help you're going to get. I assume that because we're hiring them through you, you're taking care of all the legal stuff, and I just pay you a monthly fee. And as Ron Popeil used to say on the infomercials, I set it and forget it, right?
Oh man, you're talking about the fishing rod, right? The Ron
No, I'm talking
Popeil.
about he did the fishing rod, but the set it and forget it was the oven cooker. He had a little cooker,
Yeah.
and the
Oh, I
whole
love his
audience,
stuff. Yeah.
what do you do? He set it and forget it. It was horrible, but sorry. I had to throw that out there.
No,
But my assumption is I hire these people, I pay you, and that's where my legal obligation ends.
that's correct. Yeah, you're actually the agreement is between your entity and our Texas-based LLC, and then we contract with our company in which we own the company there too in Zimbabwe to handle the day-to-day work as well. So that's correct.
And now, let's say I just love this person and I've had them now for 2 years and they're amazing. And I say, you know what? I really want to make them part of my company. Can I hire them? Am I allowed to hire this individual so instead of me paying you, they become part of my company? Is that something that's allowed?
We actually have it in our agreement that there's a 1 year salary payout. So if you wanted to pay that 1 year of salary for that person, the reason we haven't done it because is in places like, well, Costa Rica too, but Zimbabwe, Zambia, it's usually the working environment. That's why we don't do any work from home. You having constant power, like I was just in Zimbabwe 2 weeks ago. They're having 9 hour rolling blackouts, right? So every every day for 9 to 10 hours, the power goes out. Well, at our facility, that doesn't happen. Number one, we're in the downtown CBD, but we also have backup powers and generators and solar and everything else, and then constant internet. So we do it. It's just more difficult. A lot of times, Glenn, by the time they say, okay, I'll just pay them direct, then I'm going to take care of all the IT, then I'm going to take care of the power, and then I'm going to take care of the data and all those other intangibles. You end up, close to what it would be, and then you've got to manage those as well. And so I think that becomes a little bit of a stumbling block. But we've done it a few times, absolutely.
Okay. No, I just figured. And, it's interesting because you mentioned that, when you have people in your organization, you mentioned that they speak spectacular English. They're amazing at what they do. And I figured I'd bring Natasha into the conversation now because Natasha works with you and she was generous enough to give us of her time today. So thank you, Natasha. And if you wouldn't mind making a quick introduction, Natasha, to anybody who's listening, tell them a little bit about who you are, where you are, and what it is you do.
Hello, Glenn. Hello, JW. So I'm Natasha, and I started with Zimmerts back in 2018. And I started off as a dental coordinator, and I worked for a really great dental office in the USA. And then a few years down the line, I had the opportunity to move roles, and now I'm in charge of learning and development for both Zimmerts.
You had a spectacularly beautiful English accent, which again,
she's very soft spoken too. I always tell her, Natasha, you have a beautiful voice. Speak up.
Yeah, Natasha, this is a podcast. So unfortunately, this is one of those places where you have to speak up so everybody can hear you. How long have you been working with Support DDS and ZimWorks?
I recently turned 6 years on the 2nd of July. So I started back on the 2nd of July in 2018.
Right on. And what kind of work do you enjoy the most of all the stuff that you do?
Well, initially when I was working for a dental office, I really did enjoy the insurance verification that we did, learning about different dental procedures as well, because back here our system is a bit different. So going in, we didn't know any of that. So now coming in and learning all of those procedures and all of the processes involved, that was great. And then now with the training, it's actually very great having to train other people in the knowledge that I got from the dental office.
It's beautiful. That leads me to a question, JW. When you have somebody who's capable, like Natasha, and let's be honest, everybody you hire, right, everybody that I bring in is going to be competent, but there are going to be some who are going to be better suited for management and leadership than others. Do you find, I've heard stories of oral surgery offices that have 20 or 25 virtual assistants, and then they've hired people to manage virtually the virtual assistants. Is that such a thing that one should be thinking about and considering if they plan on using this to some great extent?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a number of especially in the DSO world where they've grown teams to as many as we have one that has almost 70 people. But even on a smaller scale, Glenn, let's say 4 or 5 team members, what they do is they do kind of a train the trainer. So they bring in a primary person, let's say Natasha, and they say, wow, Natasha's done really good. We want to elevate her pay. And also we want her to oversee and manage the team of 4 or 5 or 6 that we're building out. That way they have one contact person. And should they need to go back and retrain or, reallocate or maybe add team members, they can allow the person there locally to do that as well.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Is there anything I've forgotten to ask? Is there anything else you want to share other than when we're all done, I'm going to ask you to tell people how they can get a hold of you?
I don't think so. I will add this. We started really doing this out of a ministry to help people get a job. We call it a win-win-win. Our core values are built around hiring of the people. So we say transforming lives while making a global impact. And the reason that's important, Glenn, is it's the 3 wins. It's a win for people like Natasha and others who get a job. It's a win for our clients like yourself in a practice who get an amazing team member. And then we actually donate 51% of our profits back to ministries and groups worldwide. So we've been able to make a significant impact over the last few years as we've grown. And for me, I wake up every day and I'm just excited and passionate about people like Natasha, who came on board with us in 2018. She's director of education and training and career development. So she actually visits with all 1,000 plus people and how they can move forward and advance their careers. So yeah, what we do is it's a full circle, and it's more than just about making money. It's really about helping others in both places, in the U.S. and obviously in Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Costa Rica. And by the way, I'll use the term, we don't pay chumps change. It's not like we're paying people as little as we can. We just opened in Zambia. When we did a little market research, we found that our pay there was about double what the normal pay was for that role or position. So it's a good job too. So I don't want people to think we're running a sweatshop, a sneaker factory over there. It's not that at all.
Yeah, and that's what's important for people to understand. When you're paying somebody the kind of money that you're paying them for insourcing, outsourcing, the kind of stuff I've talked about with the remote response, you're getting people who are extremely dedicated to what you're doing because it could be the best job that anybody in their family could even have. And I've had people who have outsourced to tell me that without the job that we'd given them, their life would be radically different. And so kudos to you for what you're doing. Kudos to you for donating so much of your profits back to a good cause. If people want to find out more from you, how do they reach you?
Well, hey, one thing I'll throw in there too, Natasha is actually arriving the 1st of September. She's making her first trip to the U.S. She's actually going to be at 4 different dental events with us in September. So I know Natasha is making her first visit to the U.S. of A. as well. So Natasha, I know you're looking forward to that.
Yes, that is very exciting.
If she's allowed to get on a cruise, she can come to the Orthopreneurs Summit.
Well, you know what was so funny? I literally reached back and grabbed my calendar. She comes in around September 4th. She's here all the way till 1st of October. So Natasha, you may be going on a cruise with Glenn and his whole group of orthopreneurs, and I may be on there with you. So we may just bring her along. It works in the calendar too, Natasha, so you may just go. But Glenn, yeah, if you want to get a hold of us, just go to supportdds.com, and right on the homepage, you can schedule a discovery call. Takes 30 minutes. You're going to meet somebody like Natasha. You're going to be with one of our our sales team, and they can talk you through the process. So we'd love to take the 20, 30 minutes with you, explain what we do, and doesn't cost anything to learn a little more.
JW, Natasha, I want to say thank you to both of you for being here today. Again, I think this is a topic that people, again, I said it earlier, should ignore at their own peril. With the staffing shortages we face, if you're smart and you want to run a more profitable, lower stress business, let's put it into words that aren't euphemisms. If you want to make more money and be happier, forget the more profits and the lower stress. If you want to make more money and be happier, start outsourcing, insourcing, however we want to refer to it. Take whatever job you have that you can send to somebody who does it less expensively and better, do it. There will be no sick days. There will be no vacation days. There will be no drama. There will be no HR issues. There will be no tax implications or retirement accounts or health insurance. Everything else is taken care of Start thinking about it. Reach out to me personally if you'd like any more guidance on this. And again, JW and Natasha, thank you so much for being here today. I can't thank you enough.